I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Beginning October 5th, the Dallas Hope Charities Collective Hope Coalition will be hosting their first ever book club and wrap up in November in honor of Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, November 13th through the 18th. Every week, we'll be discussing Dr. Brandon Andrew Robinson's book, Coming Out to the Streets, and how the book ties in to the Dallas Hope Charities fight to end hopelessness. It begins Thursday, October 5th through Thursday, November 16th. If you would like more information, please send an email to chc@dallashopecharities.org. Books can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, UC Press, or through used bookstores. If cost is a barrier, please reach out for alternative options. I am so excited to share with you that the Love Loud Music Festival is coming to the Lone Star State. Founded in 2017 by Dan Reynolds, Love Loud is a catalyst to bring communities and families together to help ignite the vital conversation about what it means to unconditionally love our LGBTQ+ friends and family. Love Loud offers hope to people, letting them know they're not alone and encouraging acceptance in the home and community. It all begins with talking, sharing, and showing the realities of what LGBTQ+ individuals face daily. If you are in Texas and interested in volunteering along with me and some of your fellow Texans, please reach out and I will connect you with the right person. I would love to stand side by side and serve along with you. More information is on their website, which I have listed in the show notes. Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. Today, I always want to say Fancy Jancee because that's your Instagram handle.
Yes.
And you are pretty dang fancy, especially if you see her home reels and pictures on her Instagram account. Wow. My dream to be that organized. Anyway, Jancee is a friend of mine and fellow coach and actually fellow LGBTQ+ mama. And I'm just so grateful that you accepted my invitation to come on and share your story, your faith journey with our listeners. Everybody's is unique, everybody's is different, and one's not right and the other wrong. One's not better or worse than another. I just think it's so beautiful to learn about others and their journeys, their roads, their pathways in life. So with that, I want to give you as much time as I can. Take a moment and introduce yourself. Tell everybody all the things about Jancee.
Oh, awesome. Well, you're so sweet. That was such a sweet introduction. I appreciate that so much. It's kind of funny because I actually have a friend who just recently told me that her daughter who follows me thought my name was Fancy. So she said, I was following Fancy today. And so I'm like, I'll take it. That's great. I'll take Fancy. But thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to share my journey. I am Jancee Wright. I live in St. George, Utah, and I first and foremost am a wife of 29 years. Goodness, even saying it out loud seems like a long time. I've got 4 kiddos, and I like to call myself a simplifying coach because I think that organization always starts with simplifying first. So simplifying coach and a certified life coach. So that's just a little bit about me. I live in Southern Utah and it's like my big playground. I just love anything adventurous and outdoors. So thank you. That's so sweet.
You've got Zion's nearby. You've got Bryce not too much further off. And the Grand Canyon would be a day trip. for you.
It is the Grand Canyon and Zions and all that is just my playground. I love hiking and being outdoors. And so that is just like a dream come true to live here. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so fun.
So you've shared about your family, where you live. Can you share a little bit about kind of your growing up, your faith of origin? Was that also in St. George, or was that somewhere else? And just a
Yeah,
little bit about your journey growing up.
for sure. So I actually grew up in northern Utah. So
Okay.
I live at the bottom of the state. I grew up in northern Utah. I grew up in as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Awesome parents. I'm the oldest of six, so I feel like I had a great childhood. We actually kind of lived on a farm, and my dad taught me how to work really hard. And through that hard work, I milked cows and all the things that are not really very fancy, but um, but I learned how to just really work really hard. And so, but also with that, my parents were very black and white, and so I would say I was the same. I grew up that way, and so when my husband and I met and got married, that's kind of how we started raising our children. There wasn't very many gray areas. It was pretty much just black or white. And I loved that. I mean, that's what I thought was like my core, right? Until it wasn't. Right. So, yeah, a little backstory about me. I felt like I loved my religion. I went to a religious school and I thought that was the only way for true happiness, to be honest. And until I was able to go through some experiences that has changed my thinking, and I'm so grateful for that. So
Yeah, thank you so much. I think at least the guests that I've spoken with, you are not alone in your coming to that realization of how black and white your thinking was at one time. And as a coach, I know that you help others see that in their way of thinking as well.
yes.
And there are definitely much more gray areas in life than I know for me that I've realized
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear a little bit more about, you mentioned a minute ago that there have been things that have happened that have adjusted your viewpoint, adjusted your paradigms, that we could say,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, this is the meat of why I started this podcast. I found that in the beginning of my journey as an LGBTQ plus parent, I felt a lot of resistance within to
Mm-hmm.
even allow myself to lean into the idea that something I thought of in a certain way could possibly be seen in another way, or that perhaps I had misunderstood it, or that I didn't have all of the information. I struggled to allow
Yes.
myself
Mm-hmm.
permission to ask the questions, to seek different
Yeah.
answers. Although, I mean, of course I did. I dove in head first trying
Yeah.
to find and read and gather all the information I could. But I found that it took work to allow doubts and let go of the shame that often comes with that because of the way, we are taught around those two subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just in our faith, but lots of conservative faiths have a negative stigma. Well, I guess stigma is negative, a negative connotation or stigma attached to having questions and doubts.
Yeah.
So I
And
would
you
love
know
to
what?
share for you when that happened and when that came up.
For sure, absolutely. I have come to realize that that is all fear-based, right? And
Mhm.
that if I was to go way back to my early upbringing, I was probably like a senior in high school, and a neighbor of ours' son had came out as gay and was actually going to be getting married. And at the time, I think the only place that allowed marriage was in Nevada. And so I remember my parents talking about it, and they were just like disgusted and they couldn't believe it. And his parents were trying to decide if they should go to the wedding or not. And so this was like my first experience with anybody from the LGBTQ community. And to me, I remember just thinking, oh, well, this is a bad thing. Like I should stay away from this, right? So that this is kind of where my thinking was. And then I really didn't know anybody from the LGBTQ community since that time until I think I was really pretty sheltered. We actually lived back east for a little while, and I do believe that there was probably a few members of the LGBTQ community that were in our school where we attended, but I really just kind of avoided them. I think it was just that black and white thinking, right? Of like, oh, that's like, I think, and it's all fear based, obviously, that I realize now. But, and then fast forward to my son, who, his senior year of high school, he involved in plays and musical, just very talented in that. And I remember one particular night he had gone out to a play and came home, and for some reason only him and I were home this one evening. And and why this happened I don't know, but for some reason a text message that was sent to him came to my phone. And in the text message it said, I know you're gay and you're wanting to meet up with so and so. And I don't really remember all the details of the text, but I remember sitting there in my bedroom reading this text, and just this overwhelming sense of fear came to me. And I remember going into his room and just like taking his shoulders and saying, "You are not gay. Like, this is not okay, you know?" And I tear up when I talk about it because um I didn't handle that right. And it was all fear based. It was all from my upbringing and the things that I've learned and been taught. And he was crying and I was crying, and he said, "Oh my, I know, I'm sorry, I'm not." And we ended up going to one of our ecclesiastic leaders and talking to him about it. And fast forward, he actually ends up serving a mission, an LDS mission for our church. And it wasn't until he came, and I remember after that happened, we never talked about it again. Like, that was it. It just was that one experience. And then I never brought it up to him. He never brought it up to me. He ends up leaving and going on a mission. And I just thought that's in the past. And I remember just like kind of burying that down. And then he comes home, a couple of years later, and I realized I still had that fear based. Like, he came home and started kind of dating girls, but not really. And it wasn't until he one night, one night he had planned for him to tell my husband and I. He had said, "Hey, I really have something really important to tell you." And in the meantime, he had asked for like a life coach. And I was so excited. I had just graduated from life coaching school, and I thought, great, he's needing some help to like have some guidance in his life. Unknowns to me, he actually needed a life coach to help him gain the courage to be able to tell my husband and I. And so this particular night, I knew he was going to be talking to us. And, call it a spiritual experience or whatever you believe. I knew, I just had this overwhelming feeling that that's what he was going to tell us, is that he was gay. And I had so much peace and comfort with that I can't describe it. And a lot of it has a lot to do with the coaching tools that I had learned with that I got to think about it whatever I wanted. And I didn't have to think about it the same way my parents did. I could think about it, or my upbringing. I could think about it however I wanted. And when I chose to think differently about it is when I felt this overwhelming spirit of just like, this is going to be okay. And so when he did tell us, it was this loving moment. It was like him and I hugging and embracing, and my husband, and it was just like this beautiful moment. And I think that I needed to go through some of those experiences honestly before, so that I could learn from the difference of how I felt in that moment of being in complete fear to being in complete peace. And it all had to do with what I decided to think about the experience. So that was long-winded, but
No, it wasn't. I wanted to ask you a quick follow-up question. You said you had a lot of coaching tools and you were able to think about it in a different way than you mentioned the way you had been brought up to think about it. Your parents thought
Mhm.
about it. Can you
Yes,
share a little bit more about what that
absolutely.
sounds like or looks like?
Yeah.
How exactly did you look at it? Like, what are some of the thoughts that you introduced into your
So
world?
the thing I love about the coaching tools that we've been taught is that, everything you think creates a feeling and it puts you into action, right? And so I have chose to think of it as my child is a child of God, and God has made him this way. And how beautiful that I get to love a child of God. And I don't know, I just, as I've thought, that's one of the thoughts that I always go to. I also go to how awesome that I get to learn the real value of unconditional love. And that has just like, it taught me so much as just all walks of people from all faiths and genders and a color. It doesn't matter. Like I love that I just get to love people unconditionally. And that has just been like the greatest gift in my life, honestly. And so those tools that I was led to are all because I honestly believe in a God that knows us and loves us so much that he puts people and experiences into our life that are going to help us long before we actually need them, right? In fact, an experience happened with some of the with life coaching school actually that has a lot to do with the experience I had with my son. Is we were just in the end of our coaching, and we were sent a list of like 350 names, and we were supposed to pick somebody to coach with. And the instructions were just pick whoever you want, reach out to them, and start coaching with them for the next, I think it was 2 to 6 weeks, something like that.
This was in your
And
certification
in our
program, right?
certification
So
program.
you were
Hmm.
still a student.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm still a student. It's like our last like little bit, like maybe the last 6 weeks of our certification. And I remember my husband and I at the time, we were in Hawaii for our 25th wedding anniversary. And I pull up this email and it's this list of just like 350 people. And I'm like, how am I supposed to choose? And so I basically just was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I was like, oh, Jenny Hunter. She sounds like a
No
great
way.
name.
No way.
And I picked Jenny Hunter and I reached out to her. I had no idea what she looked like. I had no idea what her niche was. I had nothing.
That's
I
gonna break
reached out
my
to
spirit.
her
Oh,
and she said, yeah, I'd love to coach with you. And so we started coaching, and I was coaching on simplifying an organization. She was coaching on having a happy marriage and dating your husband. And for 6 weeks, we met together. And I had no idea she had a gay son. I had no idea. She never brought it up. We just, we coached and we became friends through this coaching time. And so this happened about 8 weeks before my son came out to us that he was gay. And um, so my son comes out, and there's that. And then maybe about a couple months later, I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I'm having my own inner stuff. Yeah, I was good with it and I was peaceful with it. But then that's when all the faith stuff starts coming up, right? And like you're just in this place and you feel alone, and they don't want you to tell. My son didn't want us to tell anybody. And so you're just so lonely and you feel so lonely. And I remember I was in my closet one day and I was just scrolling through Instagram, just trying to numb out. And this post comes up from Jenny Hunter about her son being gay. And I sat there in my closet crying like my eyes out because I couldn't, I had somebody to reach out to. I immediately text her and I said, my son just told me he's gay and I feel so alone and I have to coach with you. And she said, I can get on in an hour. And her and I remember I wasn't even supposed to tell anybody, but I felt like she was like the safe place that nobody knew my son. I remember sitting in the car in my garage and just coaching with her. And she was just like this angel on earth. And a little bit of the backstory, like, what are the chances that I would choose this lady who
girl.
is like amazing and from a list of 350 people. Well, it's not by chance. I think that a loving God knew that I needed her. He knew that I needed her, and he guided me to choose her name. And I didn't know I needed her because I didn't even know that my son was gay at the time. But God did. God knew that I needed her in my life. And I have held on to that, to be honest, Megan. I have held on to that as like my guide. Like, if he can give me an experience like that in my life, then why would this be a wrong thing? You know what I mean? Like, if he can guide me through this and guide me to somebody that he knows I'm going to need with my son that's gay, then he's got me in all areas of my life. And I just have held on. That's the thought that I always go to. He's always got me. God is good and he's got me. And so I share that story just because it honestly is just a witness that he knows and loves and our children. So, and he loves us.
Wow. I love stories like that. And I think we all have them, especially those that are LGBT.
Absolutely.
Because we all, at least all those that I have spoken with, it is very lonely.
Yeah, it is scary. Mm-hmm.
There is so much stigma and misunderstanding and shame around that topic that, yeah, it takes a while to find a safe space to talk and just get it out and know that you're not alone.
Yeah, that's why your podcast is such a blessing because I just, you need someone. I remember like at the time, like the only thing I had to hold on to was listen, learn, and love. And I would go to walks and I would just listen to that over and over. And so you having this podcast is a safe place for people to listen to other people's stories and be able to know that they're not by themselves. And if I can share any kind of message here today that can help someone else, that's why I want to do it, because others were such a lifeline for me when I was going through it. Right now I'm in such a good place that I can talk positively about it, but there's some dark times. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's really sure. It's the hardest, one of the hardest things you'll ever go through, honestly. But if you can change your mindset to believe that there is a beautiful future and a beautiful things can come from it, you really will see those beautiful things. So
I cannot agree more. And it was finally in the leaning into my doubts, my uncertainty, looking up the definition of doubt. It's a verb. It can be used as a verb or a noun. Mm-hmm. As a noun, it's to be uncertain.
Yeah.
And when I would think of it that way, what's wrong with being uncertain? And then I read Brian McLaren's Faith After Doubt, and I learned more about uncertainty, and I've realized actually it's mentally healthy to allow ourselves uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So that we're not putting ourselves in this position of our world crashing down around us when one thing is amiss from what we had understood it to be in that black and white sense. It's just so much more peaceful, and I've learned so much more about God and how expansive God is. And I've learned to trust so much more, just like you said, God is good and he's got me. When I allowed myself to literally embrace uncertainty, I found not just the ability to breathe a little bit more, but to find a deeper measure of peace, trusting that there were things I just didn't fully understand.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Exactly. I love that. That's so true. So good.
I want to ask you another question. Before I do, I just wanted to speak to what you mentioned about your upbringing, your perspectives about the LGBTQ plus topic specifically. And you acknowledged all of it was fear-based. And when you were talking about your response when your son came out the first time and you had tears come up because of how that happened, and what your response was, I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but maybe somebody listening, this might be the first time they hear it. So I say to you, and I say to the listeners, that's all you knew at the time. And you truly didn't know any better. And we all have regrets when it comes to our kids. However, I'm not the first to say this one either. When you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And I absolutely know our kids see that and they feel that. And, an approach or a response that we later look back on and think, wow, I really bombed that one. I mean, we still have choices. We can still, like you said, through your coaching tools, you started to look at LGBTQ plus people in a different way. We can look at those responses and think, okay, I can use that as an opportunity to apologize to my child, to admit that I'm human, that I'm going to make mistakes, some of them really big ones.
Yes.
And use that as an opportunity to grow closer and feel the love that can only come through, at least I believe, through admitting we're wrong, through apologizing and forgiving ourselves and forgiving others.
Yes. And I mean, tears are coming up for me as you're speaking. And I realize that even though I feel as I've forgiven myself for that, it still brings up some feelings of shame over that, right? But giving myself grace and just recognizing it and saying, that's okay. Like you said, I was doing the best I knew how at the time. And what an awesome thing that I get to do better now and move forward. And if you can get in that mindset of I get this opportunity to be able to do better, that's when you'll see all these little miracles and blessings that are just everywhere.
And I also love what you said. You looked at it. One of the ways that you introduced or just emphasized in your own life is I get to love this beautiful child of God. And
yes, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change one single thing.
I wouldn't either.
I tell people that and they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, like I have learned empathy so well. I've learned love so well. Like I feel like my Savior and I walk hand in hand with just complete love. And it's because I've allowed just the Spirit to guide me. And I'm so grateful. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that people will follow your lead, because even though I remember one of my biggest fears was telling my parents, like, after he was like, hey, we can start telling people. And I just thought, and I just in prayer, fervent prayer, like, help me to tell my parents, help their hearts to be softened. And I realized that people follow your lead. As I approached it and said, Jaden is going to come. He wanted to tell them, but I wanted to prepare them. So I was like, Jaden's going to tell you that he's gay. Or I said, Jaden's going to tell you something that's going to be really hard for you to hear. And I said, I just want you to really pray about this, that you will have a softened heart before he tells you.
Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.